Hello, and welcome to Keeper's Corner Podcast, where we're breaking down anything and everything Utica City FC related. With your hosts, as always, Matthew Sterling, Michelle Brooks, and Brandon Brooks. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Keeper Corners Podcast. As always, I'm Matt. This time, I am flying solo. Brandon's feeling under the weather. Michelle's a little under the weather, so it's just me. We had two games this past weekend, an overtime win for Utica against Mesquite on Saturday night, and then a 3-goal loss versus the Empire Strykers on Sunday, in which we saw quite a bit of action that involved less scoring and more physicality. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Let's start off with Saturday's game. It was a 9-8 overtime win for Utica. Gordy Gerson found the net 14 seconds into overtime, and at about 14 and a half seconds, his shirt was off celebrating. I was catching the game on my phone at work, listening to it, and before Big Z had finished saying shot, the goal was in, and Gordy had his shirt off because he just knew it was there. Big win over the Outlaws, who have been one of the best teams in the West to this point this season. It did net 2 points. Unfortunately, the same night, the Baltimore Blast were able to beat the Strykers in regulation, and that 3 points put them ahead of Utica and dropped us to 5th. We'll talk more about that later, how the standings are going to work this year. This was a back and forth game. Neither team really was able to get control of it. We've seen that a lot this year from Utica and the teams they're playing is, one team pulls ahead by a goal or two, and then the other team comes right back and ties it up pretty quickly. This was the third game in a row where Utica went down 2-0. A trend that only continues to get worse on the Sunday game. Before they score their first goal, they did fight back, which kudos to the team. That shows a lot of grit, a lot of stick-to-itiveness that was lacking in the early season last year. And, you got to give Gordy all the props in the world for this one. 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points. Joey Tavernisi had a brace. Rafa Godoy, in his first game of the season due to injury, had a brace. Tim Goldman, his first game back from tearing the ligament in his shoulder, had an assist. Just fantastic offensive, but a lot of, those, as Coach Everton keeps putting it in the emails that we get as season ticket holders, silly defensive mistakes, and they cost the team. Utica had to expend a lot of energy just to stay in this game. And you could see it where in the fourth quarter they gave up 2 goals to tie the game with, less than 10 minutes left. Luckily, they were able to win it in overtime. Really would have liked to get that win in regulation just to get the 3 points instead of the 2. But a win is much better than a loss in this case, obviously. Excuse me. Stat that sticks out in this one. Got to go look at the goalkeeping stats because Andrew Coughlin had a fantastic game. We talked before about how Pollo showed himself as a top-tier goalkeeper last year. Well, he had a bit of an off game. He only had a .571 save percentage. Coughlin, on the other hand, had a .619 save percentage. And I guess I should get out in front of this and say that his stats this year are not going to look as good as he's going to play. Because the defense is so sloppy at times, they get caught ball watching in transition, they lose guys on defense that are easily able to get behind them and score goals. His stats are going to be inflated. He's going to have a worse save percentage. He's going to give up more goals against than we've seen from him in any year. And that's not indicative of his level of play. But he did enough in this one to keep the team from losing. Came through on a couple big stops. Kudos to Andrew Coughlin. The play that changed this game for me. We're going to go back to the just before halftime, when Bo connects with Joey and gives Utica the lead there going into the half. That's huge. You fought back from a 2-goal deficit twice. Joey had himself one heck of a weekend. On Friday night in Muskegon, he scored a hat trick for the Lancers down in M2. Flew back to New York, scored 2 goals on Saturday, scored another goal on Sunday. Like, have yourself a weekend, Joey Tavernisi. But all the games, they in a short span will take their toll on people. And what we're seeing from Utica this year, this high-powered run-and-gun offense, it takes a lot of energy to keep it going. And unless you're going to get out ahead and be able to stay ahead of your opponents, you're going to have to spend a lot of energy just getting a goal or two ahead and knowing you're going to concede another goal. Not quite tortoise in the hare, but you're never able to pull away to where you can slow down your offense and eat some clock. You have to keep applying that offensive pressure because, as we saw both Saturday, Sunday, last week, you can give up goals just as fast as you can score them with this style of play, at least until the defense gets fixed. There may be some news coming for that. We'll report anything that we hear, or we'll share out anything that we hear if that gets fixed, as far as visas go. But there has been some visa movement around the league that will hopefully signal some guys like Toby being able to rejoin the team after years away. We talk about how Utica can run with any team in this league, and this game definitely showed it. Mesquite's one of the best teams in the West. I think they're still on top of the table at this point. If not, they've played more games than almost anyone else in the West, if not more than anyone in the West. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, the Empire played more games than anyone in the West. So Mesquite's played 7 games. They've got 16 points. But San Diego's right behind them with 2 points behind them and 2 less games played. Chihuahua's behind them by 6 points, but they have 3 less games played. Excuse me. I really don't know what else to say about this game besides, it's great to see the team continue fighting, even when they blow a lead late in the game and come out in overtime with a mentality that says, not only are we going to win this, but we are going to end it quickly, which hard to be faster than 14 seconds. I know it can be done, but it's pretty darn hard. And then, you get to celebrate. You have a good Saturday night. And then Sunday came, and that's when things kind of went a little bit awry. The Strykers came into town. The last time we saw this team, they were going by the Ontario Fury. They shellacked Utica 15-5 in Toyota Arena. Some things of note for this game is they were unable to bring Gabriel Costa, who has been the clear front runner for Rookie of the Year. He was off getting married this weekend, so congratulations, sir, on your marriage. If you want to miss any future games against Utica in coming seasons for other reasons, I'm sure the defense will appreciate it. But it's not like they were without any offensive firepower. I mean, they had Adrian Perez, Jesus Pacheco. They still had Frank Tayu, at least for part of the game. Mo Ndi. Just another kind of fully functional Death Star, let's call it, since they're calling themselves the Empire. And, of course, they have Chris Toth in goal, who was another one of those. He'd been a keeper of the year. He's atop the league as far as, one of those top-tier goalkeepers that can make up for some defensive mistakes. But this team is a big physical team, and we saw that physicality on display. And I don't just mean in the red card, which, look, I'll be the first to say when that red card came out, I was absolutely celebrating, because for Utica, that meant one of the biggest weapons, their target forward that the offense runs through more often than not, was out of the game. And really the theme of this game is failing to capitalize. Due to his own actions, Frank was tossed from the game. I'm more concerned that it wasn't even called a foul, and it took the officials going to replay when it quite literally happened in front of the officials' table, and you had Kyle Trimble 25, 30 feet down the boards with a clear look at it, than the fact that it was a red card. Plays like that happen in any sport. Guys get heated. The ball got trapped up underneath De Andrade's legs. They're kind of crisscrossed and tangled up after getting taken down. Frank turned. He went to get the ball. The way he went to get the ball was clearly wrong, because he tried to come down through Nilton's legs, whereas if he had just tried to kick it out from underneath it, I don't think any call needs to be made at all at that point. Honestly, when I saw the replay, my first thought was, oh, that'll be a major penal, blue-yellow card combo. We'll get Frank out of the game for a couple minutes, free up Bo, as much as you can free up Bo when Uzi can cover him. But, you failed to capitalize on them losing one of their best offensive players for the entire second half, and as well as a chunk of the first or second quarter. You failed to capitalize on the power play immediately after that, and Utica's power play has not been much better than last year, unfortunately, which is something we thought might change with the coaching change and the philosophy change from the bench, but that really hasn't happened yet. Not to say that it can't, but it hasn't yet. And then, of course, there was the play at the end of the third quarter with about 5 seconds left where there was a set piece, and at that point it would have brought the team it would have given Utica a 1-goal lead headed into the fourth quarter. But the ball kind of, I don't know if it forced Gordy too far outside, or he just carried it too long, or he couldn't get an angle. But he didn't have a great angle on the shot that he had. Just a missed penalty, or not a missed penalty, just a missed set piece from off a foul that could have really helped keep that momentum going into the fourth quarter. Perez had 2 goals and assists. Stinson ended up with an assist, which keeping Stinson locked down's pretty good. Pacheco had 2 goals and assists. Topete had 2 goals and assists. Including, I think it was the game-winning goal, the one that put him up 6-5. I mean, the Strykers, we know are a good team, at least on paper. If you start look at just the first couple games this year and how they ended last year, you'd think they were a train wreck, but I don't know what threw them off, but they're much better than they showed over that stretch of 11 games, well, half the season really, like the stretch of 15 games. And they're starting to round back into form. Really, they had 2 big advantages in this game, though. 3. Size. Yes, they have a couple small guys, but not quite as many as Utica, especially when it comes to matching up defense versus offense. They had just played in Baltimore, and while they didn't have much success there, playing on that smaller field, you don't have to burn as much energy sprinting from one end to the other, playing a high-pace offense like Utica likes to, and did play the night before. Yes, they had some issues with travel from what we were told, but you could sleep on a bus. It's possible. It's not the end of the world. It's not the best sleep, but it is sleep. And yeah, Utica played the night before in another one of our track meet games where we have to expend so much energy just to stay in it and hopefully win it that any weekend where we have back-to-back games, we're going to be in trouble in that second game. I mean, you could really tell in the fourth quarter, Utica was just gassed. I know I'm umming a lot. I'm sorry. It's kind of weird to monologue by myself for a while. So I'll be honest, this episode's going to be a lot shorter than a usual one. Just no one to bounce things off of. I mean, as good as Coughlin played in the game the night before, he only had 4 saves on 11 shots against, which isn't going to get it done in this league, really in any league. We saw, I forget if it was Swift or Fernandez with the giveaway that put it 7-5, and you could just feel the life get sucked out of the odd. Like, at that point, I just kind of put my head down and went, well, this game's over. Because you could see it on the players' faces. They just took one too many gut punches at that point. Not for lack of trying, but they weren't able to go a full game after, just the race to the finish line last night. And, once again, it was the 4th game in a row where they went down 2-0 before they scored any. This was the first time this season they've been shut out in the first quarter. I don't know, just a bit depressing to think that we fixed the offense, and the cost of fixing the offense was completely scrapping the defense. I know, the transition goals can be changed, but how far into the season that happens will determine how far this team can go in the playoffs and if they even make the playoffs. Yeah, you can't give up 4 goals in the fourth quarter and you're not going to win a lot of games in this league giving up almost 8 goals a game. You can win a lot of games scoring 6.5, 7 goals a game, but if you're giving up 7.5, 8 goals, you're not going to win that many games. So we'll talk about standings briefly. I know it's early, but we're a third of the way into the season. Utica only has 8 points. They are 5th in the East, 1 point behind Baltimore, but we've played one more game than them. 4 points behind Kansas City for 3rd. They've played one more game than us. This Sunday, we have a matchup against St. Louis at home. St. Louis is in 6th place. They've played one last game than us, and they have 5 points. So if they win this game, they would have the inside track for that 5 seed, which would be the road team in a single game play-in game for the playoffs. The winner of that play-in game would then play the number 1 seed in the East. At the moment, that's Florida. But Milwaukee stands a good chance of getting there, seeing as they're only 6 points behind with 4 less games played. One of the things I did this week after the games was just throw out on Twitter a couple of polls to see where people think this team is compared to the same point last year. And we'll say this. Offensively, the fans believe that the team is better. Hard to argue with that. I'll share some stats in a minute. defensively, they think the team is worse. Again, very hard to argue with that. I'll share some stats. They do believe the in-game coaching adjustments are better by a vote of 70% saying they're better versus same or worse. And as far as special teams, some say they're better, some say they're worse, or some say they're the same, but that's a 2-to-1 ratio for better to worse, or 2-to-1 for same to worse. So the general consensus is the team overall is better than they were at this point last year. I'm not saying than they were all last season last year, but at the 8-game point, which last year would have been after losing to, ironically enough, the then Ontario Fury at home. That was the 8th game of the year. Sorry, just catching my breath, grabbing a drink, because ramble. So, to compare where we are through 8 games, in the 2021-2022 season, after 8 games, Utica was 2-6, 1-3 at home, 1-3 on the road, only 6 points. Both those wins were in regulation against Harrisburg. We'd only scored 33 goals to that point. Barely over 4 goals per game. You're not going to win a whole lot of games in this league if you can't score more than 5.5, 6 goals per game. And defensively, we'd allowed 53 goals. A couple of those came, there were some blowouts there from Florida in the early half of the year that really contributed to that. And while Florida's blown us out once this year, there hasn't been as many blowouts, which is a positive. This year, after 8 games, 3-5, 2-2 at home, 1-3 on the road, 8 points because one of those wins was the overtime win against Mesquite. The other 2 were regulation against Harrisburg. 53 goals for, so 20 goals more in the same amount of games. However, we've allowed 60 goals, which is 7 more than before. So our goal differential, while better, is still in the negatives, and that's not good. Unless this team can find a way to start holding opponents to, 6, 5. You can get away with 7 with the kind of offense that this team can put together when they're not completely burned out in the fourth quarter of a back-to-back game, second game of a back-to-back, but you still got to get things cleaned up defensively if you're going to be offense focused. And the final 8, just like to keep things in perspective, because we did turn things around last year, and the final 8, in the second half, things got going the right way to where we almost made the playoffs. In those final 8 games last year, Utica was 6-2, 5-1 at home, 1-1 on the road, 18 points. All those wins were in regulation. 50 goals for. So our offense has been better than even the best stretch of soccer we played last year. But we only allowed 37 goals last year. And obviously, with the defense this year, not having Schindler, not having Vitale, Logan's been out injured. Toby's, he wasn't there last year, but Toby's out as well. It's a lot for the new guys to learn. Especially when we're carrying 1, maybe 2 defenders a game. Correa left this last game with an injury. Yes, Ricky Alves missed Saturday's game due to suspension, but he was also nursing an injury on Sunday. Rafa and Timmy sat out on Sunday because playing back-to-back, they don't want to re-aggravate the injuries like that quickly, But so yeah, the team looks better on paper. Offensively, in person, they look a whole lot better. Defensively, they're a little bit more of a mess than last year, but they don't have as much experience back there. And I think that contributes almost as much as last year when the players just I don't want to say they weren't focused. Not as game fit as they needed to be at this time. That year off really hurt. But we will see how things go here in the middle half, where Coach Marrero really needs to try to figure out this defense, just get them to clean things up. If you can stop those bad giveaways in the defensive third that turn into a goal or two every game, you're going to start winning a few more games. And hopefully this is the stretch to do it. I know I talked about like Utica could go 2-4 over the stretch after, or could look really good after the Harrisburg, those few games after Harrisburg, or they could look really bad. And right now, I don't want to say they look really bad, but they don't look all that good. Getting blown out in Florida. Yeah, you ran with Florida, but they haven't looked the best of late. I think that might be due to fatigue more than anything, but we have St. Louis coming to town on Sunday. It's a 2:05 game. You hate to say it, but this might be a must-win game this early in the season, just to keep that fifth seed for, that inside track for the fifth seed as we approach the midway point. Florida this year has Paolo back. He's only allowing 5.5 goals against per game. He's got a save percentage over 72%, so he's been right back to himself after the ACL injury last year. However, their offense hasn't been as spectacular. They've got a negative 14 goal differential. They're only averaging 3.6 goals per game. So this could be one where Utica might not have to worry so much about their defense being an issue, because the offense they're playing isn't as crisp and as much of a threat as Florida or Mesquite or the Empire. At the moment, their point leader is Deduca Carvalho, who's got 4 goals and 3 assists in 6 games. For comparison, Gordy is the leader in points for Utica. 8 goals, 9 assists. Those 17 points tie him for first place in the MASL for most points. You look at Carvalho, he's got 1.2 points per game. Gordy's at 2.1. So, offensively, there's a lot of difference between these teams. Utica definitely has the advantage. If they can keep from making too many defensive mistakes. If they can avoid from making defensive mistakes, really. And one way they can avoid from making mistakes would be on the power play. Because at this moment, Utica has killed 66, because 0.6666. They've killed 2/3 of all power plays they've faced, which is fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic. It is tied for second in the league at this point. However, offensive on the power play, they're only 4 for 11, which is a 364%, 36.4% completion rate, which is not great. The Empire and Dallas lead the league at 54.5%. Now, to be fair, the difference between the Empire and Dallas and Utica is they have converted 2 more goals in the same number of power plays. But that's huge, because over the season, if you're scoring on over 50% of your power plays, that's a lot of, I don't want to call them free goals, but it's a 20% swing. You're looking at maybe 40 power plays over the season, maybe 35. 7 to 8 more goals per season. That's a lot in games that are decided by 1 and 2 goals. And, Sundays would have been decided with 2 goals if it wasn't for the open netter against the 6th attacker. But that 357 clip is the 9th out of 14th in the league. So, got to get that cleaned up. Especially facing the top goalkeepers in the league. As Utica will over this next stretch. We've got 3 games left in January, I believe. Yes, 3 left in January. 4 left in the first half of the season. And those 4 are against St. Louis, at Baltimore, home against Baltimore, and at Milwaukee. So, hopefully better than a 1-3 stretch, but we've already lost to Baltimore it was by 1, and it was the first game of the season, but Baltimore has gotten better as the season's gone on, just like Utica has. Milwaukee already beat us, and my lord, if we keep letting guys score 5 goals per game like Ian Bennett or Luis Morales did on Saturday night, you're not going to win a lot of games. It's it's a long. They say it's a long season at 24 games, but it gets late early out there, and you don't want to see that writing on the wall by mid-February. Especially when in March is when Utica goes to Mexico for a couple games. You got to get wins against teams that aren't Harrisburg. Can't count on winning 6 games out of 6 games against them every year. It's kind of weird not having anyone to bounce against. I'm sorry if I've been a little rambly in this. I think that was everything I wanted to talk about. In all honesty, I'm a little brain foggy. I was up 4 hours earlier than usual today for stuff. Didn't get a nap because of chaos. And I'm recording a few hours later than normal just to get it done so I can have it out to you tomorrow, which when you're listening to this or when it releases will be Thursday. Utica's got to win this game on Sunday. Got to keep that inside track. I guess we'll just touch on some of the other stat leaders around the league on Utica's side and call it a night. As I mentioned, Gordy's tied for points lead with Victor Pereira and Zach Reggett of Florida at 17. He is 3rd in the league in assists with 9. Nate Bordeaux is right behind him with 8. And he is 5th in the league. Gordy is 5th in the league with a 2.1 point per game at this point. Joey's 2 power play goals are tied for 6th in the league. Gordy's 2 game-winning goals are tied for 1st in the league. Ricky Alves, 11 penalty minutes, is tied for, or is 4th most in the league. Not a positive. Bo has made that list as well, tied for 7th with fellow Utican Dylan Hundelt. 7 minutes isn't really that. It's a blue and a yellow, and I don't know why they gave Hundelt a yellow. I don't know what he said to get it. I don't know why that foul was called against Utica. I have rewatched that play a dozen times. The best I can get is Fernandez bumps into, I think it's Pacheco, and just kind of wild body. Sure, call that a foul, I guess. It just concerns me that gets called a foul, and stepping on someone to get to the ball isn't called a foul initially. I just want some consistency from these officials. I just want some consistency. Because the consistently inconsistent is exhausting to watch. It is. It's exhausting. Coughlin, second in the league with 100 saves. He only trails Nicolau Neto by 5. He's 6th in the league, tied for 6th with 3 wins. That's where the league leaders stand for Utica at the moment. I do have a little bit of good news. Logan should be back this weekend to help shore up the defense and get them straightened. Maybe we'll see. Oh no! Wait, is he? Did it happen? Guys, it happened. Guys, it happened. I just went and checked the roster. Darren Toby is listed as active. We have Darren Toby back and Logan on defense. Oh, our defense just got so much better. Hopefully Logan can avoid getting injured again. It's kind of been, unfortunately, a thing over these past few years. But, oh my lord, guys. Hopefully this clears up some of our defensive woes. Hopefully Correa is healthy to get in and rotate with them. Oh, guys, girls, fans, Uticans. The P1 visa issues have finally gotten cleared up. Oh, I just gotta take a moment. That certainly will help alleviate some of the issues. If you're thinking, well, Toby hasn't played in a couple years, how are we going to know he's in shape? He was playing in Muskegon as well. He's been training with the team. He's on the Lancers roster just to keep in shape. But if he got cleared up, that might mean a lot of other players got cleared up. Let's go see something quick on the website. Because if that happened to Utica, as big of a boost that is for our defense, there are some other teams around the league that might have just gotten even better. Okay. Doesn't look like Florida got anybody back yet. Let's go see what transactions are showing. Anybody add players? Psychic Stars, the Heat sign. Yeah, we know that. Okay, doesn't look like anyone else has been. Like, we saw KC get a few guys back, but that is huge for Utica to get Darren Toby back. At this point, our inactive list is only, I say only because it is just one person. That's Diego Zuniga, who was signed before the 1920 season and we've never seen, so that's big. Hey, go Utica. I guess that's really all I have to say this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know it's a short one, but after last week, I guess we kind of owed you one that was a little bit shorter. Be loud on Sunday. Let's send the ambush right back to St. Louis with their heads between their, heads bowed, because they're just going to get thumped in the odd. We know how loud it can be. We know how intimidating it can be. I don't remember, like I said, I don't remember if it was Q or Fernandez who kind of had that costly giveaway in the defensive third. Shake it off, man. Like, it happens. It's unfortunate that it happened when it did, but it happens. Correa, hopefully your injury isn't too bad. If it is, man, rest up, get healthy. Just do what you got to do to take care of yourself, because that did not look all that pretty the way you were limping off the court or off the turf. Our usual plugs will be around after in the outro. If you like more than just indoor soccer, you can go ahead and give my personal Twitter a follow at KCP_Sterls. That's KCP all capital _STERLS. Usually I'm on Twitter talking crap and sports and trading cards. We still have the TeePublic store. tpublic.com/Keepers Corner Pod, or you could just go to TeePublic, look for Utica City. You'll find at least one of the designs I put up, and there will be a link. You can click on the artist name and get to the whole store. I kind of have an idea for what I want to do. If I get it done, I'll put it out there. Yeah, so that's that. You guys can leave voicemails. We were promised we would have a voicemail from one of our listeners this week, but here it is, Wednesday night at 10 o'clock, and no voicemail. So that's what it is. Until next time, I'm Matt. Thank you for listening. Go Utica. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Keepers Corner podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to us so you never miss an episode. If that podcast app also has reviews, be sure to leave us 5 stars to let us know how we're doing and reach a larger audience. It really helps us out. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Keeper Corners Pod. And you can always find us there talking UCFC soccer. Thanks again for the support. It's truly appreciated. One last thing. Go Utica.